All righty. All right, guys. Hello. Welcome to our Momentum Learning Pre-AP Biology Open House. Yes. Somebody raised their hand. Everyone good? Any questions? No? So I see a hand raised. So I was like, if you know what the question is. No? Everyone good? All right. So in fact, that's great. You guys know on Zoom, there is a place where you can raise your hand. And if you have a question, please do that. You can also put it on the chat. I'll keep track of the chat also, right? But guys, welcome to our Pre-AP Biology Open House. I am Miss Mathur, and guys, I will be teaching you all this course. So a little bit about myself. I have, well, more than 18 years of teaching experience. I have been teaching in public and private schools. I did my master's in biochemistry from India. And then when I came to US, I did another master's in education. I taught in India, also worked in Malaysia and Singapore. And then when we came to US, I worked in a private and public school in Louisiana for about 15 years. And then we moved to Houston, and that's where I'm at. I'm currently teaching at St. John's High School, which is a private school in Houston, Texas. And I teach biology, chemistry in that school. So apart from this, guys, I also do what's called SRD. SRD is called Scientific Research and Development. And that's for upperclassmen or students who are interested in science. So we teach them how to do different types of research, how to present your work. So it's a pretty cool class, right? It's all on what you want to do, and we help you as a mentor. So that's a little bit about me, right? Let's go to the class itself. Guys, you are coming in the pre-AP biology section. It's through Momentum Learning, and here you can see on their website, if you go on to these 2024 fall online, you can see this high school section. That's where you can find this information. Right. Moving on, what is pre-AP biology? Guys, this is our meeting times. We will meet 11:30 to 1:30 Central Time. So from September 8th to November 24th, every Sunday, right? Grades, the recommended grades are 8th and 9th. 8th are kids who are going into 9th grade. And so it would be a great intro to the class. And 9th grade, of course, they are in 9th grade. So they are learning that content. So what is pre-AP biology? And guys, I hope a lot of you are already in school or might go to school next week. But this would be what this class will be about. So pre-AP biology, it's an intro to AP. AP is the more advanced form, and that's opened for upperclassmen. In our school, it's for 11th and 12th graders. But for you to get to the AP, the pre-AP is kind of like a foundational, which is sometimes also called as an honors course in some schools. What this class is all about is to give you the information on what biology is, right? You engage in data analysis. Like once you learn the content, you need to learn what the application is, solving critical thinking questions. Content is great, and we will do that in class. But then how you apply it is where the major thing comes in. We use all kinds of scientific reasoning. We talk about, in fact, that's what we are going to go over today, the scientific method on how to use it. It's a generic method that we use on different types of content in biology, right? Recommended grades 8 to 10. 10th grader will take it only if they haven't taken biology before. 8th to 9th who mostly take it. Prerequisite is, of course, you had some intro to middle school science. It gives you a basis for that. It's a lecture-based class, and there will be no labs. But don't worry, a lecture can also be made fun if it's interactive, right? And that's what we're going to go over see today. So what are we going to cover? Guys, this class from September to November will be Pre-AP Bio 8. Biology is huge and we cover so much content. But in this particular chunk, these are the units we are doing. We'll start with scientific method, graphing, go to biochemistry. Biochemistry it's a pretty interesting topic where we study a little bit about chemistry, not a lot, because there's a whole other section for chemistry that you can take. Basics of chemistry, something that you might have done in middle school, and then use it to see how it's used in biology, right? And we talk about these 4 major, what are called macromolecules, big molecules: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acid. Now, you might have heard about these words all the time, right? We talk about carbs all the time. But what are they? What's their biological relevance is what we talk about here. From there, we go into cells. This is actually where biology is starting. Again, something that you might have heard in middle school. What is a cell? What are the different parts? How do they transport? That's all in cell structure and function. Next comes cell energy. Here we talk about how cells get their energy. Cells are living. Anything living needs energy. So we talk about 2 processes: photosynthesis and cellular respiration. They are both involved in some sort of energy conversion. So here's a quick question. Does anyone know what is cellular respiration? Photosynthesis, I'm sure some of you might know, or maybe all of you. But can anyone tell me what is cellular respiration? You can put it in the chat, or you can. All right, nice. All right, I'll take breathing. That is respiration. That's a good clue. All right. What else, guys? Oh, yes. To energy convert. All right, we're getting warm. Let's see, guys. What else do you know about cellular respiration? Oh, yes. That's a fun one. Mitochondria. Good. Energy from sugar. Perfect. Very good. Guys, you all are awesome. Yes, it is a combination of all these things, right? So the food you eat and oh, wow, that was great. Convert ATP into usable energy with oxygen as a byproduct. Man, whoa. But one thing is, oxygen is not the byproduct. It's carbon dioxide, right? Breathing. You breathe out carbon dioxide. But I'm impressed. A lot of you are talking about ATP, which is an energy molecule. Perfect. So good. A lot of things we are talking about. So cells, they use the food that you eat along with the oxygen that you're breathing, and they do this series of chemical reactions, and that's how we get ATP. ATP is called as the energy currency of the cell, right? Currency is what you use to function. US has its own currency, dollars. You go outside in Europe, you have another sort of currency. So energy currency for cells is ATP. But again, that is exactly what cellular respiration is, right? So we'll talk about that. We'll go into how does that happen? What we eat, how does the body change it into ATP, right? It's a chemical reaction. Then we go to cell reproduction. Cell reproduction is you have a group of cells or one cell. How did we get into so many cells, right? Tell me, if I say an adult human, right? We're all adults. How many cells approximately do you think we have? Go on, guess. How many do you think we would have? How many cells does an adult human have? Is anyone Googling the answers to see if it is true? No? A random guess, that's fine. Yes, about. You're close, you're close. Eleanor? Trillions. It is in trillions. But guys, it's 760 trillion microscopic cells, right? When we started our life, we were one cell. How did we become trillions of cells, right? How does that happen? That's cellular reproduction. Why does that happen? Why can't we have a few thousand cells instead of trillions of cells? Cellular reproduction, right? You cut yourself, your skin, and the skin repairs itself. Cellular reproduction. How did cells do that? How did they know that now they have to divide and now they don't have to divide, right? That's cellular reproduction. Then comes the unit that I personally love, genetics, which I think everybody loves. We look at different genes, how they combine to give you a phenotype, how you look like. That's genetics. We talk about Mendel's rules, talk about fun, interesting things like how do I have A blood group or B blood group or O blood? What does that even mean? That's all genetics. What are these different genetic disorders like, albinism, albino people, right? Does anyone know if a person has albinism? What are the symptoms? Like, how do you know a person has albinism or an albino? Have anyone, by the way, guys, I'm sorry, my throat is a little off. So I'm trying to speak a little slowly. So if you don't get anything, let me know. So who is an albino person? Have you seen one before? Do you know what the symptoms of albinism are? Yes. Guys, perfect. Lack of melanin. Exactly. Melanin is a protein that gives us color. So, when we say pale, white, light skin, hair, guys, white is also a color. They're not even white. They have no color, right? And so when we say color, melanin is not just skin color, our hair color, our eye color, they're all forms of color. So they have nothing, right? And you would think, okay, what's the big deal, right? Melanin is important to protect us from the sun's rays. And these people, they are missing it. So the question is, why? What went wrong that they are not producing this very important protein called melanin? How does this happen? The two parents, completely normal, had a kid who has albinism. So that's genetics. And then our last unit is molecular biology, which is, now that I know how genes work, what is the molecule that is making these changes? That's molecular biology. We talk about DNA, RNA, proteins, and biotechnology is application of that, right? This is the most fastest increasing biology field at this point. So guys, in all, the unit is full of information, right? But when we talk about it, and I'll show you, it's not just content. There's so much more to biology, right? Okay, so guys, here is our week by week syllabi for the course, right? And of course, this is kind of like a overview of what we are doing, but there'll be much more. So for example, in the first time we meet, I'll be finished scientific method and graphing. And then we will do some practice questions. So practice is what makes us perfect. And it's going to be interactive, right? I'll show you how this will go. But like you guys have been talking about, I'll be like, hey guys, what is that? Because in virtual, I need you guys to tell me, to answer me, so I know that you understand what we are doing, right? So first week, we are doing scientific methods and graphing, and then intro to biomolecules, which is a second unit. Then we will complete biomolecules, intro to cells. So every class, we will finish with one, and I'll introduce the next topic. And then we'll go. Okay, but third day, guys, we also have some assessments. These are in-class quizzes. So because we are working weekly, and again, don't worry about an assessment. I'm not grading it. These are already graded for you. This is for you to understand that you covered all this content. What type of questions can you expect? right? So that's the in-class quiz, about 30 minutes each. Multiple choice, and then you go from there, right? And then we do cell organelles, cell transportation, and then you have a quiz. So every approximately 2 classes, we have a quiz. Because guys, in these 12 sessions, I'm completing the whole of the first semester of pre-AP Bio. So we do go at a faster pace. And I'm meeting only 2 hours per week, right? So it is content heavy, right? Then we have 5th, 6 weeks. That's something that you can see once we start the class. You will see it's more specific. So let me show you how that looks like. So we will be using Canvas. I hope a lot of you are comfortable with Canvas. It's an amazing platform for teaching. And this is a snapshot of what your Canvas will look like, right? You have all these things over here, but modules is where you are interested in. And if you see here, that's what every setup is. There's kind of like a place where it's week 1. What are we going to do? Kind of like a little lesson plan. And then you have handouts. This first one is Unit 1 Scientific Method PDF. Whatever slides I use, I put them in a PDF form. You can download them, right, to review them. Then there is some classwork. So these classwork sheets are pretty robust. I give you, so the idea is that I talk or you take notes for 20, 25 minutes max. And then I give you a practice sheet, which is for 10, 15 minutes. And then we do a whole class discussion, right? Then I again talk to or discuss for about 20 minutes where you're writing notes. Again, I'll open up a question. So that's how it's going to be. It's not like, don't worry that 2 hours you just keep writing. No, that's not how it goes. There's content and then there's practice. There's again content and then there's practice, right? And then finally, guys, for homework, I will put these little like mini quizzes, a multiple choice, where you can then again go back and review, right? So that's how the class is set, right? Another important thing, which I feel is pretty important, all of this instruction material, the slides, the worksheets with their keys, all the multiple choice question, the quizzes that you take, they will all be recorded, right? You will get a recording of that for 3 months, like as far, of course, during the year when we are taking the class. After that, for additional 3 months, you can go and look back on those videos to kind of remember the material, right? The Canvas invite that will be sent to the students, not to the parents. Guys, this happens where kids are like, parents like, oh, I didn't get the invite. It's going to go to the student's email ID. And that'll be about 4 to 5 days before the course starts. A day before the course, you didn't get it, please make sure that you contact Momentum and they would be more than happy to help you out, right? Homework needs to be submitted. Guys, homework was that little multiple choice section. The reason it's mandatory is because it's a way of you knowing whether you understand, and it's a way of me knowing if you made any mistakes, right? Because I go back and look at it and I'm like, oof, a lot of you all missed question 4. Okay, let's talk about it, right? It's a reflection feedback for me also. Class Zoom links, you can also take, you will also be given that. So you can join. We have the same Zoom link, makes it easier. We don't make a new link every time. Okay. So guys, that was kind of the setup of the class, right? Before I go into like a mini lesson, quick intro to what we could do. Does anyone has any questions yet? And again, you can write your questions on the chat, unmute, whatever you guys want, go for it. Any questions on the setup? Right? So I think, guys, we are good to go. So I was thinking about what could be our mini lesson. What is something that I can introduce? Oh, wait, I got to check. Okay, good. Guys, how many students are in the class? So till now, I've had about 10 to 12 kids in the class. But I'll be honest, and you'll be like, oh, that's a lot. In fact, guys, I love to have a bigger class because it makes it for such a more interactive session, right? In a virtual class, it is hard for me to know if you got it or not. So it'll be a lot of like back and forth. Sometimes I'll be like, hey guys, put it in the chat. There's a poll. What do you do? What do you think? How do you like it? Right? So but don't worry about it. Because of the 2-hour session that we have, I get time to kind of touch on every student in the class, right? It is a very interactive class. So that's the answer, guys, right? It's okay. We do make it interactive so that everyone's involved. And guys, one another thing, when you actually take the class, you would have to have your videos on because, I like to see you. I like to see if you understand because a lot of times I see your like facial expression, like, I don't get it. And even if you're not confident to ask, that's my clue. Oof, maybe this person didn't get it. So let me go back and review that, right? So you would have to have your audios and your videos on when you are in class. All right. Any other questions? That was a good one. A lot of people ask, how much homework will you give? So, guys, for that, remember those practice sheets that we do in class? They're pretty long, right? So the quiz that I assign you every week, that's mandatory. You should do it because that gives me a clue whether you got the material. But if you need more practice, then the optional, the worksheets, that some of it we do in class, the rest is completely on you. You can do it, right? I always upload the key that goes with the worksheet. And so you can check your answer, right? And if it's not correct, next time come and put it in the chat. Ms. Mathur, I was doing this worksheet and I didn't get the right answer. Can you please discuss that with me? More than happy to do that, right? So that's another feedback that I get that, okay, I need to maybe talk about this thing more. But approximately that mandatory homework should not take you more than 30, 35 minutes. But all the optional worksheet, guys, there's a whole lot of worksheets that you can have. So what you want to do with it will also depend a lot on what you do, right? How much you want to take from the class. I give you all the resources available to you. However much you want to use is up to you, right? Okay. Any other question, guys? If while I'm teaching, it comes to your mind, go ahead, put it in the chat. Doesn't matter. And I'll answer that, right? Okay. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to do kind of like a mini lesson just to see how does it look like? What is content? Like how much content are we talking about? Right? So we are going to talk about a very, sorry, the Q&A we just did. Let's talk about our mini lessons. So guys, welcome to Biology with Miss Mathur, right? And that's usually, I'm really excited to be teaching you all. So my slides are very like colorful. Let's go from there, guys. So what we are going to do is we are going to talk a little bit about the scientific method. Because I was thinking I wanted to use a topic that you might have an inkling on because I want us to talk about it, right? Something new like biochemistry, not everyone might know, but this you might. Okay, so let's get started. Another thing I do, I use this handy dandy whiteboard, which you can see. And guys, what you can do is you can pin that window to make it bigger. And here I write notes. What are notes? These are the highlights of a slideshow, right? That your teacher gives you so much information. What is it that you should be writing down? That's a soft skill that you should learn. So whatever is important, I write over here. Kind of gives you an idea. This is what you should take from this material, right? So I'll keep writing over it. And once I'm done, I'll erase it because it's really small. So if you didn't write anything, let me know. Are you like, Miss Mathur, can you slow down? Again, I'm looking for your feedback. So, guys, we are starting with scientific method. All right, guys, before I start telling you, can anyone tell me what is the scientific method? Has to be some sort of method, but a method to do what? Okay. It's a sequence of steps to follow while solving a scientific problem or question. That's great, right? So I learned about it's a sequence. The sequence have some steps. We use it to solve problems in science. All right, let's see what else. It is an empirical method for acquiring knowledge. Oh my God, that is awesome. Yes, acquiring knowledge. And guys, knowledge about the biological world, which is huge, right? Yes. Does anyone know any words that are associated with these like steps and sequences that we are talking about? Any words that you use in the scientific method when you are solving a problem? Some vocabulary that you use? Yes. Questions, prediction, inference, thesis. Awesome, right? Hypotheses. So guys, another thing in biology is very heavy on vocabulary, right? So whenever I use a new vocabulary word, I'll try to explain the root of it, right? These are Latin words. Each Latin word, there's a reason why we use that particular word. It's not like a scientist got up in the morning like, oh, I like this word, I'm going to use that. No, there is thought behind every vocabulary word, right? Okay, perfect. Let's start, guys. So the question is, what is a scientific method? And so you guys did talk about it. It's backbone. It's a method which is a backbone to every science experiment, methodical framework to solve problems and determining answers. And it has a very set logical format, right? It's not random. There are steps we do because it takes us to a certain end product, right? That's the scientific method. Anyone, why do we need it? Someone said solving problems. Well, we solve problems all the time. Before starting this class, I was having a problem working with Zoom. My Zoom was not working. So I was like, okay, let me see. And I fixed it. So why do we need this process? Awesome. Good job. Had an amazing answer. Rachel did a great job. Stay organized. Be on track working with your work. Yes. Guys, it's all about being organized. Making sure. Now, scientific world is huge, right? We are in US. Someone is from another part of the world. We got to stay consistent in our studies, right? We need to follow the same steps or pathway. So when we come to a conclusion, we know that everyone did the same thing. right? So and again, it's helpful. I know what steps to do, right? So it's helpful when I know how am I going to go about solving a problem, right? So everyone has different beliefs, values, right? How can we be consistent, right? If we don't have the same format, we can end up using different ways and our results can be completely different. That's not uniform. That's not organized. That's definitely not helpful, right? And so that's why we came up with a common method for solving problems in science. Do we already use it? Yes. Yes. Without knowing, you probably used the steps of the scientific method. When I dealt with the idea of my Zoom is not working, I probably used some of those steps, right? And so without realizing, we work through the steps of the scientific methods. When you look at the method, you're like, oh, I do it all the time. There's nothing new. It's just that we have formalized the steps, right? How do we use it? And we'll see, right? When your flashlight wouldn't turn, what do you know? You got a problem. Then you look back and you research, hey, what could be the possible reasons that a flashlight is not working? And then you come up with a hypothesis. You're like, oh, it doesn't work, maybe because there are no batteries, right? And then you experiment, you work on it, and you see if your hypothesis was correct. And then based on that, oh, let me change the batteries. And then you work again, and you're like, oops, still not working. Oh, I gotta go back. And then you make a conclusion. You literally use what a scientist would use, right? So someone said steps. Perfect, guys. These are the steps of the scientific method, right? Oops, sorry. We state a problem, we research the topic, we make a hypothesis, conduct an experiment, analyze the data, and come to a conclusion. All right, but guys, here's my next question. Do you think it's a rigid stepwise method? That means you have to go from step 1 to step 2, right? When you're walking upstairs, you have to use the lowest rung and then the one above it, or in science, can we jump around? Can I do, oh, well, I started the problem, I researched the topic, and then I realized, oh, maybe the problem I'm working is not right. Can I go back? What do you think? What do you think, guys? Is scientific method a rigid linear process? Like you have to follow steps? Yes, no? What do you think? Yes, perfect. Yeah, all of you said no. Yeah, it is not a rigid linear stepwise process, right? Yes, when you're walking up the stairs, you shouldn't be jumping stairs. I wouldn't recommend jumping from first to fifth, injure yourself. But in the scientific method, we can move around. So saying that it's step 1, step 2 is too simple. This is better, right? You can go around and come back. They're all connected. All right. So guys, let's start with our first thing, purpose, right? So let's do a quick scientific method intro. So the first step, or how you start, is we start with a problem. Where did the problem come from? Usually comes from your observation, right? You observe something in your environment and you're like, that's a problem that I need to solve, right? Let's say during the summer, I'm like, oh, maybe I should grow some plants, right? I went and I started looking at plants and I'm like, oh, this rose looks so pretty. I want that in my house. But then I started looking at the different fertilizer and I'm like, oh my God, there's this huge variety. What is good? So I observed something and now I have a problem, right? So when we start the scientific process, the problem that I'm writing should be very specific, data-driven, and what we call as falsifiable, right? Let's do a quick check. Is more fertilizer better for plants? That's my question. But now you tell me, is that a good scientific question? And if it's not, then how should I improve it? How can I make my question specific, data-driven, and falsifiable? Yeah, it's not. It's not a good question at all. Yes. So what should I do? All right, okay, I got some good ones. What amount of fertilizer can maximize plant growth? All right, we are on a great path. Yes. Amount of fertilizer. That's data-driven and specific. Good. Because my amount of fertilizer is probably going to be in grams. All right. Can I make plant growth more specific? Because plant growth is really like a very ambiguous word, growth. There are different types of growth. What are we talking about? All right, yes. Can the amount of fertilizer affect plant height in centimeters? Good. Yes. Right? Guys, here is one another thing. Why centimeters? Why did I not use like, I don't know, like inches? Inches is not something that I would use. Anyone? Why? Yes, because it's the metric system, right? And you guys must have studied the metric system in middle school. For mass, it's gram, or distance or length, it's meters, which is centimeters, and so on, right? Yes. But now you're absolutely right. We have a statement that is specific, data-driven, and falsifiable. That means at the end of the experiment, I can say if it's true or not based on my data. Right? Awesome. Let's move on. Next thing that we got to do is we got to research our problem, right? So once we have a problem and a good question, we got to research, right? Why? What's the advantage of researching? After all, I am going to do the experiment. I will know what's going to happen. Then why should I research before? Yes, to learn more about my topic. Why? Why? I want to see if the amount of fertilizer affects my plant height. Why do I need to read on it? Yes. So I can narrow down. And guys, research is what you are going to base your hypothesis on, right? And it's also for you to learn and have more knowledge or information about the topic, right? I just started gardening. I don't know about fertilizer. How do they work? What do they have? Right? And that gives me more information about my topic, right? But more importantly, with all that information, we are ready to make a hypothesis. All right, vocabulary word. What does it mean? What do you mean? What is a hypothesis? How do we define it? Come on, I know there are so many of you. Someone should answer. I'm having these same 4 kids who are answering. Come on, guys, let's go. Good. An educated guess. Perfect. Yes. Awesome. Good. A guess. Yes. Right? What else? It's a proposed explanation of a phenomenon. Exactly. Great answers. Guys, a hypothesis is an educated guess about the outcome of your experiment. It should be a clear and simple statement, and it should state what you think your results will be, not why you think you got those results, right? So let's make a hypothesis. Guys, what could be a possible hypothesis for our fertilizer question? Okay, perfect. More fertilizer that we use will have more growth, which in our case was more height for the plant. Perfect. Yes. Right? So we are getting to the hypothesis. So a good hypothesis is a statement, not a question. It's plausible. That means it's possible. It's testable. Yes. Falsifiable. I can test. I can add more fertilizer and see if the height is changing. And it defines measurable variables. My fertilizer is going to be in grams and my height is going to be in centimeters. And then based on your educated guess, you can write a statement to say why, right? Based on your education, we can say more fertilizer can lead to more growth because, I don't know, our research showed that there is more nitrogen which the plants need to grow, right? That's why it's an educated guess. You learned about it, right? So guys, sometimes we heard the word prediction. What is a prediction? A prediction is different from a hypothesis. A prediction is, if I do this, then this will happen. But a hypothesis, oh, sorry, somebody wrote something in the chat. Yes, a prediction is just a guess. I'm just predicting this might happen, right? If I put more fertilizer, then the plant will grow. I don't know the reason, but that's what normally should be like. But what's a hypothesis? It's an educated guess. If I add more fertilizer, then the plant will grow because something, right? Educated guess. All right. So guys, let's see. Let's do a couple of questions. Read statement 1 and tell me if it's a prediction or a hypothesis. If food is dropped into the aquarium, then the fish will swim faster. What do you think? You can write P for a prediction and H for a hypothesis. Yes, definitely, guys. Good job. It's a prediction. I just saying, if I do this, then this will happen. I haven't given any reason for it. Awesome. Good. Let's go to the second. Students who work a night shift job experience a reduction in academic performance because of sleep deprivation. Good. Good. Okay, I'm getting some good answers. Yes, guys, it is a hypothesis. I am giving a reason behind it. Good job, right? And then, of course, there are more, but you see the difference. Now, sometimes, guys, we talk about hypothesis, but then there's something called as a law, right? Or we use the word scientific theory, not your regular theory, right? In day to day, we say, oh, I have a theory. No, I'm not talking about that. A scientific theory, a law. What is that? Guys, a law is a related set of repeatable and verifiable observation. A law has been verified by decades and centuries of data, and then it becomes a law. Law of gravity, law of evolution. What's a theory? Well, a theory is a tentative and falsifiable statement. It's not a law yet. We are seeing kind of like a pattern, but the theory will try to explain a natural law, right? Like theory of evolution. It's explaining how does evolution work? And then the law is that evolution happens, right? Okay. So, guys, we talked about the hypothesis for our fertilizer experiment. A lot of students are actually worried. What if my hypothesis is wrong? It's okay, right? Guessing incorrectly doesn't make your experiment wrong. Every experiment teaches you something. Do not change your hypothesis if your data is not supporting it, right? It's all part of the scientific method. All right, guys, we talked about hypothesis. Let's go to our actual experiments, right? Experiment is when you are ready to actually develop a procedure to your hypothesis. You have a list of materials, you have to take measurements, and you go from there. And guys, at the experiment stage, we have different variables that we are going to keep track of, right? Independent variable. This is what you will change. We sometimes call it the manipulated variable. A dependent variable, which is also called responding variable, because this will change. And then we have something like constants. Okay, quick check. What was these three variables in our fertilizer experiment? What is our independent variable in that fertilizer experiment that we have been talking about? What is it that we are deliberately manipulating in that experiment? Good, good. We can even say amount of fertilizer. Yes. And guys, what is our dependent variable? What is our responding variable? Good. Height or growth of the plant. Good. What is something that we should keep constant throughout? Good. Sunlight. Because that can mess up my experiment, right? Amount of water that I am putting in my plant, important. The time that I am using to collect data? Right? Light, yes. Temperature, very good. Anything that can impact my experiment apart from the independent variable should be in a constant. Soil, good. Type of soil, amount of soil, good job. Right? But guys, then we talk about groups. Your experiment should have two groups, a control group and an experimental group. What's the difference? What's a control group? In our experiment, this is the group with no fertilizer, no independent variables. I have a part that has no fertilizer. And then I have parts which have different types of fertilizer. So independent variables, the experimental group has the independent variable in it. Can anyone tell me, why do I need a part with no fertilizer? What's the relevance of this group? Why do I need a pot with no fertilizer? Guys, the control is for comparison, right? Let's say you did this experiment exactly to see what normally happens. If you hadn't given fertilizer, then how much growth or height a plant would have attained on its own. But when you gave the fertilizer, then what happened, right? Okay, but guys, like I said, it's going to be like a mini lesson. You know, we will work on it. We would have talked more about it. We would have gone to analysis, data table, graphs, how to make a conclusion, and so on. But guys, my purpose was, and we're coming to the end, that's why I had to kind of stop the discussion, to give you an idea that even though it's a virtual class, it is very, you have to be actively participating in it, right? Okay, guys, before I say bye, any questions that you might have for me? Anyone? Any questions? Okay, so guys, that was it for me. That kind of gave you what the class would be like, how we will meet, how we will talk about, and then we'll go from there, right? If you don't have any questions, guys, you're free to go. I'll stay around for a couple of more minutes, and that will be all for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see a couple of you, all of you, in our class. All right? Have a great day. Bye, guys.